Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studios in Phoenix, Arizona, it's time for Phoenix Business Radio, spotlighting the city's best businesses and the people who lead them.
Hello and welcome to Phoenix Business Radio, broadcasting live from the Max 6 Entrepreneur Center right here in Tempe, Arizona, where we help build businesses and connect you with the right people. And I am very excited to introduce you today to Rabi Zari with Positon AI and Craig Lilly, who is a partner with Reed Smith LLP. We are going to have an incredible conversation around mergers and acquisitions and the role that AI plays. Before we get into our conversation, I would really like to have each of you introduce yourselves to our listening and viewing audience. Tell us a little bit about the role that you play in the company you represent. And I'd also like to hear how you landed there. We've got plenty of time for our conversation today, so don't be shy. And Rabi, would you mind getting started for us?
No, happy to. And thank you for having me, Karen, for having us. I'm Rabi Zari, co-founder and CEO of Positon AI. My background is from Arizona. I lived in Arizona for 17 years. I went to Arizona State and I went to Thunderbird there. I did my engineering degrees and I started the company there in the secure transactions using PKI technology and Nuance, which was voice recognition. And then after that, I kind of realized that being an engineer and starting a company, you're more of an inventor as opposed to an entrepreneur. So I went and did my MBA program. I quit my job, did that for 2 years, and afterwards I did management consulting. I'm happy to say that I doubled my staff, meaning I hired one more person. We were a two-man shop. And we had companies like On Semiconductor and Honeywell and Hypercom and whatnot. So we had some really good wins there. We delivered, and post that experience, I went to a Hewlett Packard Enterprise. This was HP before the split with Meg Whitman, and it was a $120 billion company. I joined their corporate strategy. Then I went into sales strategy and planning after the split, and after that I went to corporate development, where I was part of the team that executed the deal for Cray Supercomputing, iconic brand in the US. And we did a lot of other small software security tuck-ins there. And then I joined the business unit for high performance compute, AI, quantum, and I led their M&A strategy, partnerships, and investment. Throughout that experience, there was a lot of pain points that you go through. And as an engineer, you're always thinking of how to solve problems, how to make problems more efficient, or processes more efficient. So Positon was born based on that experience. So we decided we call ourselves the Salesforce.com for M&A practitioners. So we automated the entire process end to end, from sourcing all the way to closing and post-close integration. So that's kind of the story behind Positon. And the word Positon, it has a couple of meanings as positive, on, but it comes from Positano, Amalfi Coast. And I was there on my honeymoon with my wife, and I was looking for a name for the company. And I saw this serene, beautiful view in front of me, and I'm having a glass of wine. And I thought to myself, that's exactly opposite of due diligence and the M&A process. And anybody in that field can identify with that. So that's kind of how we.
Great origin story. Thank you for sharing that. And I had to be corrected before we came into the room to start our conversation. I kept saying position AI, and that's how I've been reading it. So I love the background story, and Positon is a beautiful name for the company. And I'm so looking forward to hearing you and Craig discuss what a game changer AI is and how Positon has been playing its role. So Craig, we'd love to have you join us in conversation. Tell us a little bit about you, your organization, and of course, how you landed here.
So I'm Craig Lilly. I'm a partner with Reed Smith. I specialize in mergers and acquisitions, primarily with technology companies. And as a kid, I was always fascinated with numbers and technology and things like that, and got to know some, older, lawyers, practicing lawyers, and they thought, I could do those and become, a corporate lawyer. And back then we used to be more multifaceted. We did different aspects, more kind of general practitioners within corporate and business transactions. But over the years, lawyers, we've specialized and more emphasis specializing in one thing. So do, mergers and acquisitions, a lot of private equity, but also, sales for private companies as well as acquisitions for public companies too as well. And so I've been practicing here in Silicon Valley for approximately 20 years. And before that, I worked on the East Coast and also in Texas for another firm. So I'm with Reed Smith. We're an international firm. We have over 30 offices here worldwide. And look forward to speaking with you and Karen and Robbie today. This sounds exciting.
Great introduction. Thank you. And how did the two of you connect? Are you doing work together? Remind me, Robbie. I know how you and I landed in this conversation. It was through LinkedIn.
Yeah.
Which I so appreciated that. And I said, well, we would love to have you on to tell your success story and who ought to be in the conversation with us, which is how Craig joined us. Tell me a little bit about the relationship. Have you two had an opportunity to get to know each other beyond today?
So Craig and I met through a mutual friend. It was a CEO of the ACG in Silicon Valley. ACG is kind of a mid-market kind of a organization that brings people together, right? So creating the ecosystem in the mid-market M&A. And Yvonne kind of realized, hey, there's a synergy here between Craig and myself, and we got to know each other and have hopped on a few calls. And it's a small world in M&A here. So everybody kind of knows everybody, especially in the mid-market and enterprise kind of level. So it was perfect, a perfect kind of connection with Craig. And we talk about how AI can have impact on M&A and from, short-term, mid-term, and long-term.
Love it. And Craig, I'm with the 20-year experience that you've had with Reed Smith. How would you compare what's happened even in just the last year with the influence of AI? What are you noticing and seeing? What maybe makes you a little nervous? What gets you excited?
Well, it's interesting in AI. Even though the M&A market generally is down over 30% by value, the last 3 quarters, mergers and acquisitions in artificial intelligence has increased. And there's been several large acquisitions that are very notable. Databricks acquired Mosaic ML. It's about $1.3 billion transaction. Reuters acquired Context. It's about $600 million. And even just earlier this week, HPE, announced they were going to buy Juniper. And really that was with respect to Juniper Networks AI cloud solutions. So, AI is just impacting everything. It's fascinating. Even, you see a lot of old line industries, whether it's manufacturing, transportation, automotive industries, agricultural, technologies. And so it's a fascinating area. It's just all over the place, obviously. With respect to AI specifically in M&A, I generally see it in 3 areas where it's really progressing. One is the procurement area. I mean, we're running into private equity sponsors who are using AI almost exclusively to procure and find deals and find out information those and synthesize and determine which are the best companies to pursue. Obviously, in the diligence is a huge area in M&A and trying to de-risk transactions. Artificial intelligence plays a big role in that, and Robbie can talk about that further. And also in the post-closing integration of companies. I find that's probably the largest single factor and the key to successful acquisition is the post-closing merger integration. And that really starts immediately, really when the company's first talking and getting to know each other. And as they negotiate the definitive acquisition agreement, do their diligence, really kind of trying to start the integration then and get the relative groups together in each of their specializations.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't agree more. I think if you look at all industries, actually, I would say that AI is going to have an impact in all industries. So companies that don't integrate AI, there is a chance that would be left behind. There's a competitive advantage there to integrate AI into their core capabilities and take advantage of that. I think M&A, there's there's a lot of opportunities that Craig mentioned here in different areas from phase one, phase two, phase three. Um, the way I would describe the current state of AI, there is a lot of experimentation right now. So there's integration. No one wants to be left behind. They want to get on that. Um, uh, they want to catch that wave. But at the same time, there's a lot of unknown, like Craig mentioned. There is a lot of experimentation that's going to happen in 2024. There is different types of also, I would categorize AI in two bins. One is actually building AI itself. So you have a data set, you have to put a data set in place, you have to train the model on that data set, and you basically have to optimize that model, or get it to a point where it's more accurate. It's no different than actually taking a kid through college, right? So you have the curation of the data is your textbooks, right? And then you feed it the textbooks. Now you have that model is an expert or bespoke in, say, finance, right? And then you can do from there, you can actually have specialization on, say, merger acquisitions or accounting or what have you. So you can take that model and then make variations of that. So, and then there's the other bin, and this is costly, by the way. This is to be able to do this. It's absolutely, it's massive cost. There's a lot of effort from an infrastructure to bring the cost down. And you'll see, just like the cloud came about and brought the cost down, I think that AI, HPC infrastructure is going to be on the cloud eventually, and we'll see a lot more experimentation on the cloud because of the nature of the cost going down. The other bin I was going to talk about is essentially generative AI, which is, taking a model that, you probably, played around with GPT and Chat GPT and what have you. So you take a model like OpenAI, Chat GPT, and then you create a UI, UX on top, and you create value on top where you actually automate things. And these are very different types of companies, right? So I call it the first bin is essentially NVIDIA's of the world, and the folks that are selling the shovels, right? and then excuse me, and then you have the other bin, folks that are looking for gold and stuff. So, but I think there's going to be is going to be a lot of churn, I would say, in 2024 for a lot of these companies because they're experimenting, the ones that are from Gen AI, right? So they're experimenting. Some of the use cases are working, some are not. But overall, there is, I don't think there is going to be any industry that will be spared from having AI integrated into its processes. Positon, for us, we looked at the entire process, and I have a ton of experience with from sourcing all the way to post-close integration, and a lot of these processes are essentially can be automated. They're repeatable, and we the way we call it is that we automate the mundane out of the process. So you still have to you have to do due diligence, you still have to source, you still have to know. You have to have intuitive business knowledge to know what you're doing, right? So that's never going to be replaced. I call it, the analogy I have for that is kind of like taxi or Uber, right? So taxi, you're still going from A to B and you're paying your fare. With Uber, you click a button, it's the same experience. You're still going from A to B, and you're paying the fare, and then the experience itself is a lot easier and a lot more pleasant than calling a cab.
Craig, from your perspective, when this is not only engage, we know that we cannot not engage in AI, right? That's a given. And to Robbie's point, it's expensive and there's a lot of experimentation going on. From your perspective, what does that mean for your firm and the companies you represent?
Yeah, it's interesting. We've been exploring AI for several years. Actually, we have a subsidiary called Gravity Stack that's been doing different AI applications. Some very simple where they look at 1,000 contracts and extract or pull out information and make summaries of those. Other things are more complex. Analyze and try to comply, medical records with compliance with laws and things like that for medical related, companies or hospitals and that type of thing. But, AI, I think it really touches everything. A lot of people obviously are kind of scared of it, but it's an enormous opportunity. It's going to really, as Robbie touched base on, it's going to impact everything eventually. I think from a legal standpoint, there's a lot of concerns about data privacy, intellectual property rights, data security, the quality of the AI, and also just, pending government regulation. There's a lot of deal makers as well as, political authorities that want to regulate AI. And I think that's eventually coming, but I don't think people really have a grasp on it as to what that means and what they should do. But, there's things that come out every day that are concerning, like Carta earlier this week announced that they had a data privacy issue with regard to they're an equity or capital management structure, management company. And they manage capitalization structures for companies independently. And they also do secondary transactions for stocks of private companies. And because of some data privacy issues with regard to what they were sharing or which they should have been, they discontinued that service. So you're going to see those type of things emerge from time to time as well. But it's amazing just also the grasp of AI. For example, I did a search on a software of just Bay Area alone, the number of AI startups in the last 3 years, and it was almost 800 companies. And that was companies that had some type of funding too. So I also, looked at it from that standpoint. But it's amazing the breadth and depth of the AI expansion and how quickly that it's occurring.
How do you see AI changing acquisition overall? Even just that small example, or just being able to search and to have it so rapidly in your hands and knowing how to use that data, what does this mean for changing the way companies are acquired?
I think it's going to be a lot more efficient. Just a couple of stats here. M&A market, depends on who you talk to. It's $2 trillion plus. Some say 4 trillion. 70 to 90% of those transactions and deals fail. And so that's an enormous opportunity to actually, extract value and also fix some of these processes, right? So if you look at the entire process from procurement, like Craig mentioned, or sourcing, all the way post-close integration, you could argue, where is the issue? Why are these transactions failing at what stage? So we decided to actually look at the entire process and represent everybody's interest in every step of the way. Meaning that we collect data, we use AI. By the way, we don't lead with AI. We say we're Positon AI, but the thinking here is that we don't lead with it because of what was mentioned here about everybody now slaps AI into the wording AI, but we come from that world, and we want to make sure that we work closely with our customers. We created a sandbox where we can work on use cases, and we also ring fenced it so that meaning that whatever AI you're using, it's only for that particular customer. So there's no. But even then, we're actually Azure or Microsoft provides a service level agreement that's wrapped around OpenAI. That's what we use. So we have some protection from the data security and data protection. But even with that, we add other layers of scrutiny on the data, and other layers of making sure that we don't share anything sensitive within. So we would like to grow with the market. So we're helping the market, but we would like to grow with it and do it responsibly. So that's kind of number one on that front. But if I go into the use cases, where AI could make M&A more efficient. I can do that. So one use case, you might enjoy this one. It's very simple. You say company A is a large company that has 40 people deep that actually do due diligence across all work streams, right? Finance, marketing, what have you. And then you have a small company that's the target company that's being bought. Typically, say that company is 50 people in total. Typically, 5 people that are the management team, they know everything. So all the questions and due diligence, they go to 5 people. um, if people that have been through that process is so grueling, they don't sleep, they don't see their family for a long time, and they get a lot of these questions are duplicates. So say 20, 30, 40% are actually duplicate because marketing has a question about what is your last say what is your last what is your revenue for the last 5 years, or finance is asking the exact same question. Procurement is asking the same question. It's paraphrased,
Hmm.
but it's the same question. So, in fact, actually, I call it in this case, it's beyond just annoyance. It can erode trust.
Right. It's a trust factor.
It is a trust factor because now you're asking me same question multiple ways, like what are you getting at, kind of thing, right? So and you see it when you work with the smaller companies. So what we do, for example, we pick up those questions on Poston AI, and we say ask away all your questions. You don't have to come together and triage all the questions or anything. We'll do it for you on a platform. So we have a record that you ask your question. So from a fiduciary standpoint, like you ask your question, but we collapse everything. We tag people that ask that same question, and we send it to the target. Excuse me. We send it to target. Target now, they don't have to answer, all these duplicate questions. They answer it once, and it goes to all the appropriate work stream leads. That's one. That's AI doing that. And if as you can see, there's not, in the due diligence question, these typically are generic questions that you ask. You can have double clicks and things like that, but it's a lot less invasive in terms of data security. That's number one. Another one that we do is one of my favorites is what we call a bluff report, which is
A what report?
bluff report, which is bottom line upfront.
Okay.
So when you're doing your due diligence, in real time you have a curated, beautiful report that is being generated through AI and automation and UI UX, and you can see everything there is about that deal, like who's involved in it, who's the permissions, access, the key activities, anecdotal answers, the files that were uploaded. So you have in one place every single thing that you can think of in terms of that transaction, and it keeps changing. Like say a minute or 5 minutes pass, folks answer questions. The report now is up to date. So there's a number. There's a number of use cases that we use. What I call heavy duty, the ones that Craig mentioned, like looking into contracts, extracting risk and opportunity, and summarization. That is something that we want to work with customers slowly on that, and other use cases like valuation, DCF models and stuff. Like I had the one customer that we were demoing to, and it's incredible. Like if I provided the AI, like a P&L, like a pro forma P&L and a prompt, and then it generated full blown DCF model that typically takes about a week or 2 weeks.
Wow.
When they go research all the industry averages, they research. Now that we have that database that has all that information, AI is actually way more accurate in doing those valuations. I mean, we can go on and on. There's so many use cases in the M&A space. One of my favorites, I would say, in the procurement that's very unique, actually, that in the procurement space, a lot of these targets are private companies for the most part, and private companies, it's really hard to find information, right? So you can go to PitchBook, you can go to Crunchbase. These tools have been helpful, but they're kind of directional. They're not accurate because it's private information, right? So one way we actually solve that problem is by using data as currency for these startups and SMB mid market. So they can actually add their information. The more they add information about their company, we unlock features for them like access to VCs or access to resources, like benefits and credits in the millions of dollars, right? Things like that. And then you have AI that plays in the background that does all the the queries for you. So and every morning they tell you, hey, there's new companies that joined. Might want to look at this. This is their profile is 80%, so they're complete, they're investment ready, they're M&A ready, or what have you, right? So or partnership ready, or so the idea is that it's a network where folks can engage with each other. That we never do things just automatically, right? So the idea is to keep a human touch at all times. And you'll see that a lot with AI capabilities. You always want a human making the final call, and you can think of it like MRIs, for example, right? They show the doctor has to make the call at the very end, even though MRI will show you clearly what's going on, but otherwise we could automate that process, and we don't need a doctor to do that. So yeah, I mean that's kind of in summary, some of the use cases, but there's a lot more because the process itself for M&A is it's still super outdated. It's one of the most outdated processes in a lot of spaces, that I've seen. Yeah,
I've heard the same with our court system. Yeah, that it's and that's really an area that not only needs high security and risk management, but also could really improve as far as how long things take and how archaic the systems are. Craig, I'd love to have you weigh in on the conversation as well. What are you thinking as Robbie explains and shares what he has?
Yeah, no, I think AI is obviously the gamut of it that'll help out the diligence prospects and finding things. I know some funds and PE sponsors I work with, they'll be using AI actually just a source scrub of everything they can find actually through the internet or otherwise. So it'll pull up all types of information, even off, client or customer reviews you have on Yelp or things like that. So it's amazing the amount of information that you can obtain for diligence. So I think it'll make it better and faster and cheaper. Now, it's not infallible. Obviously, you have to have a person, analyze it. Sometimes they'll misinterpret something. It could be some litigation that maybe wasn't really that material or relevant, and they'll disclose it and interpret what happened. So those are always issues as well. I think one of the things too about AI and M&A is that it is a very labor-intensive type of process, and I think it'll make things go smoother and faster. And in the long term, will make it much quicker and cheaper for buyers and sellers as well. So I think it'll really expedite the process, and also I think we'll have the potential, as Robbie was pointing out, to weed out some of the transactions that maybe shouldn't have occurred, of finding things internally regarding a company that may not have normally maybe been able to be obtained normally through diligence. So, and I'm sure also too, we're seeing things where they have kind of quantitative type issues about where they analyze, the success probability of a M&A transaction long-term post-closing, after the integration process. So I think that'll also, be very helpful. And also on the valuation, as Robbie was pointing out, private companies, it's really difficult to obtain information on them and to obviously determine a valuation. We use third-party valuation companies, but I think AI obviously can provide some, better, faster, cheaper analytical tools for determining those valuation issues and making it more cost-effective to obtain those as well.
Mm-hmm. I'm curious, just on a broad stroke, what are the keys to a successful acquisition for a buyer of a business?
Yeah, that's a $1 million question. So it all depends on the thesis for that acquisition. There's a number of success factors that are outlined, and they're not all metrics. They're not all financial metrics. There
Right.
are other metrics that are involved as well. So it all depends on the industry, on the strategy of the company, short term, long term. Yeah, there's many factors that go in play, but you know, I would say maybe AI is, you can think of it as kind of a co-pilot in that process, right? So you have somebody, I'm already failing the Turing test, by the way, by I refer to AI as a person, but you have you have AI kind of co-piloting with you in the entire process, as you source and as you actually develop your strategy and research and market research that you could do. It's I mean, it's absolutely phenomenal because I did test some of this stuff before on, you know, uh, just asking AI, hey, can you give me top pure plays in, industry averages and pure plays ratios and things like that, and it was able to go to the right place and bring, and that research typically you have to it takes some time, and now it's just way more efficient. You can, and something else that to keep in mind is that we're in version 1 of this AI application, right? 2024 is going to be a lot of testing, like I mentioned, but it's going to get more powerful. It's going to be, more bespoke to every single industry and area and space. So you'll have specific, like, finance models that are going to be specific for just that, and much better model than, say, if you ask OpenAI or GPT, right, which is more of a generalist, if you will, right? So you're going to have a lot of these flavors of AI, open source models that are existing out there. Also, it's kind of expediting that whole process. Folks can take that and then make it more specialized to them. So there's a lot of activity in that space, and it's just inevitable that every industry will have to use it. And I don't want to get into um, like sci-fi with quantum stuff that's actually being that's being developed in other places. So they go in tangent,
I don't
AI.
want to go into it, but I'm going to say it.
Yeah, I mean, it's that body of work is taking place, and a lot of folks are, deep in the research there, and AI is going to be integral part of getting quantum computing to the next stage. So as AI develops, also you got to watch out for quantum, and that's another computational order of magnitude that we can't even fathom. Like it's going to change everything we know.
Can you predict how soon that's going to happen? Are you willing to put that out there?
Oh God, I remember in 2014, I was talking with some experts, and they said 20, 30 years from now. So I still say, about 20 years from now.
Uh-huh.
And I may be wrong. I don't know. I mean, it's because AI itself. So I'm an engineer, right, by training, and I can't even think of how to design an algorithm for quantum. Like it's not something that is natural to a human process, right? Like actually programming a quantum.
Yeah. Such
So,
a
so
different
AI
way
is going to
of
have a,
being and thinking. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Craig, let's talk about um, just the unique market that we're in right now. And when we're looking at a M&A from a perspective of sellers and buyers, what are some creative ways and solutions to get things done in spite of the market? How are y'all holding up with staying on top of everything and staying ahead of the game?
Yeah, one of the basic things right now is there definitely has been kind of a pricing misallocation between buyers and sellers. And so, that often comes in recessionary or downturns, however you want to call it. And usually, typically, the way buyers and sellers solve that maybe is typical as earnouts. And that's a process where you have post-closing considerations paid, as the purchase price. And it's usually based on, a metric. So say a company is bought for 100 million, you could have the earnout could be 20 million of that. And it's based on that post-closing 20 million payments based on a metric often is revenue, or EBITDA or what. Usually buyers and sellers usually will agree to revenue because it's much easier to determine that than EBITDA, which can be manipulated. But that is a common mechanism. Now, another thing too, a lot of sellers are concerned about post-closing indemnities. So over the recent years here in the U.S., it's really greatly expanded as M&A insurance. And instead of if there's a post-closing breach, say a breach of a representation or warranty in a merger agreement, instead of the buyer going against the seller, the buyer can then make a claim against an M&A insurance policy. And the pricing or premium of M&A insurance policy, it kind of varies with the economy too, but roughly it's around 2.5%, 3% or 3.5% of the actual indemnification amount. And that is a negotiated issue as who pays that premium. Often it's split between the buyer and seller, but that's another thing that helps facilitate transactions. We've also seen a lot of deals lately where it just, it goes on and on the M&A process, and maybe the buyer or the seller, has concerns about the transaction, and instead of buying the company, they've been making minority investments. So we've seen things like that, or they've done some type of joint venture or partnering arrangement. So a lot of strategics, often maybe they'll do some type of partnering agreement with the potential seller, or do some type of customer arrangement, depending on the type of business, kind of get their feet wet to get to know the company better. So those are things too as well. There's obviously other types of things that help incentivize management teams too. You see management carve-outs or bonus plans to incentivize the management team on a post-closing basis as well. We also see a lot of private equity sponsors now have, not all of them, but a lot of them join this kind of ownership works concept where they provide equity on a post-closing basis to the employees, either through an incentive stock option plan or equity awards. And those are really trying to properly align both the investor and the employees of the company. And we've seen that, be very helpful. I think the number one thing, as we were talking about the success of an acquisition, is the post-closing merger and integration. And really what that means is the alignment of goals and values, and also the equity ownership or outcome long term, not only just for the management team, but for the employees in general of the target company. So I think that's very important as well. And so it's definitely the major key is the alignment, not only with the management team, but employees with the investor or buyer of the target company. It's just like my parents told me when I was a kid. If everyone's happy, we're going to be successful, and so you want to properly align the goals and values of the investor, and as well as the management employee team as well.
Craig, how about the biggest mistake that a prospective seller of a business makes?
I think the number one mistake is they don't prepare for the acquisition from the onset and before that. And what do I mean by that is the number one thing that derails or kills transactions or gives a buyer leverage to reduce purchase price are surprises. And so during the M&A process, you have to try to eliminate those or reduce the probability of any surprises or risks. So, if we're representing a seller, the first thing that we, tell them if they're contemplating selling the company is to do some initial diligence on themselves, not only from a legal, financial, and operational standpoint. And we've seen just some common mistakes that have really, hurt the credibility of a seller. For example, the stock records don't match the capitalization records of the company, or what the ownership of what they think. Or the IP, they don't have assignments of the IP from employees or contractors that actually own the IP. That's been a big issue. Employment misclassifications now is becoming a bigger and bigger issue in a lot of jurisdictions. Not only the misclassification of an independent contractor versus an employee, but also an exempt versus a non-exempt employee.
Huh.
In California, that's also a big issue on every transaction. And so those are a big concern. Underfunded benefits is another basic, tax compliance as well. So you want to make sure you prepare for the sale way before you even get into negotiations with the prospective buyer.
Yeah. Robbie, when you hear Craig share those pitfalls or those mistakes from that AI lens and what Positon does, where do you see your role in helping avoid those mistakes and increasing the success of a merger and acquisition?
Right. So yeah, there are a couple of things there. One is I want to go back to the success factors and making sure that XYZ deals that you executed are being tracked. There is a deal performance that has to happen in terms of governing that, and typically that's not organized in a way that's still in outdated processes. Excel, PowerPoint, and if you have transition in leadership, you want to make sure that those deals are being tracked from an execution standpoint. This is where AI can come in as well, and then have a cadence on that governance for the execution. And we do that. We have the performance management on some of these deals, on the deals that you do. The other side, I want to be very careful in how I describe it. It's kind of it's not we don't have a marketplace in the way we designed the network. It's more of a business network where folks can engage, right? And finding different opportunities, whether it's partnership, whether it's an investment, or what have you, right? The way we set it up, we set the target or smaller companies, or sell side, however you want to describe it. We set them up to be ready, right? So we organized everything in what we call company profile, and also a data room that makes it, if you don't have 80%, for example, of your data in there, and your data is appropriately inputted and tagged, you don't get access to engage with anybody. You see, so that means you have to be investment ready, or you have to be exit ready, and then you have all these other features that are unlocked to you. And we basically hold your hand through the process. And if you're not ready, then you don't get access to any of that stuff. So that's how Positon kind of reimagined that whole process. And like I said, it's very important to remember, this is not a marketplace where you go and start shopping around. This is more about, how do we engage? I like what you're doing. Let's talk, kind of thing.
Yeah. Even if we're not ready, I would imagine Positon can provide us information to be better positioned for when we're going to come back in and give it a go the next time around.
Exactly. So one area like that we do is called benchmarking, that we provide them, and also they have to have their data in before they see benchmarking. What that is, they can see top 5 in the industry, and they'll see the P&L pro forma, right? They see this. Basically, they see how fast they're driving. They see, they compare themselves to what's going on in the industry, and also we give them industry average. So, excuse me. So from that respect, you have companies that onboard from the network perspective, that they have everything they need to be able to actually, be investment ready, or engage with the other party. Mm-hmm. It's kind of you can think of this network like LinkedIn, right? It's a professional network. but you can, you know, engage with that person and say, hey, are you interested in a role with us, right? That kind of thing. But before that. I don't know if you remember Career Builder and Monster. And if you had your resume on there, you have HR knocking on your door and saying, how come you have your resume on there? Are you not happy with us? And
Right.
then LinkedIn came along and then basically changed that whole mindset.
Right.
And
Made it okay for us to say we're always looking, always out there. Yeah.
that's the reality. Everybody's always looking, everybody, including businesses. But the idea is not, you're not putting out there yourself to be sold. You're just finding opportunities from a partnership, from many business aspects that you can, it's a very critical distinction there.
hmm hmm
Yeah.
What's in the works for each of your companies in the next even just year to 5 years? Craig, you've been with Reed Smith for over. Has it been the full 20 years as a partner?
No, I've been in Silicon Valley for 20 years. I've been
Okay.
at Reed Smith for over 4 years.
Okay. And so from where you sit, and same with Robbie, what's ahead for both of your companies? And I would love to end each of your kind of forecasting a little bit with how folks can stay in touch with you as we round out our conversation today. Craig, can you go first? What's ahead for you guys? And then for our listeners and viewers, how do they stay in touch with you and find out more about Reed Smith LLP?
Yeah, no, I think M&A will pick up in 2024, so we're really focused on that, and we think it's going to pick up in AI, cybersecurity, sustainability, and healthcare. Also, I think we're going to see a modest uptick in IPOs as well. There's 793 unicorns, which are private companies over $1 billion. And so some of those companies I mentioned before, like Databricks, which is a data analytics platform, Canva, which is an online graphics platform, and Turo, a car share company. Those are some examples of companies that may go public. So I think we're still very heavily focused on M&A. I think we're going to see an uptick in that as well from private equity as well as strategics. And I think, I think really about 70% of all private equity deals right now are focused on what they call add-ons. So that's when they acquire the company first, that's a platform acquisition. And usually that platform company will buy other smaller companies. I think and we call those add-ons or tuck-in acquisitions. I think we'll see that pick up as well. I mean, that's over 70% of all private equity transactions. So we're heavily focused on that as well. I think inflation also, I see that coming down, which I think is going to be really helpful for the economy as well as acquisitions. Obviously, that's been a big detriment for not only the pricing and valuation of companies, but also for acquiring the companies by private equity funds, which, obviously the cost of capital is more expensive for them. So I think all those things are going to be very positive. We're already seeing a lot of green shoots already here in early 2024 and also the last quarter of 2023. We're seeing a lot more prospective sellers and buyers. So I think that will continue, and I think will be a very positive sign as well. And people can reach me on LinkedIn. I'm also can be found at reedsmith.com. My email address is clilly, that's CLILLY at reedsmith.com. Happy to discuss any type of M&A type issues people have as well. But I'm very positive about 2024, even though there are obviously geopolitical risks and we have election going on as well. So that's always can be challenging in an election year.
Yeah. Love the perspective and love that it's uplifting. That we need to have more of that. Absolutely. Thank you, Craig, for joining us. Robbie, how about you? What do you see taking place? And then how do we stay in touch with you and learn more about Positron?
So everything Craig mentioned is kind of music to my ear, to be honest, because that's what we're here to support those activities.
Mm-hmm.
And we just went general availability beginning the month, meaning that we're selling go to market with with all the testing behind us. And we have a number of announcements coming up with some investment bankers and some partners that that we will be engaging with going forward in 2024. And we're ramping a lot of the customer onboarding, private equity, enterprise. A lot of these folks we're ramping that onboarding itself in 2024. I would love to, if you're interested in what we're doing, reach out to me at Robbie@Positon AI, or you can find me on LinkedIn, and be happy to talk to you about our offerings and your business needs and everything.
Great. That hour goes very quickly, doesn't it? We cover a lot of ground in a short amount of time, and I do appreciate both of you spending a little bit of your morning with us. You've been listening to Phoenix Business Radio, broadcasting live from Max 6 Entrepreneur Center. Some media leans left, some lean right, and we lean business. Until next time, I'm Kira Nowicki. Thanks for listening.
Oh.